The survey team stood at the edge of the canyon, staring at what the human had built. Dr. Veldar, the expedition's Kralix leader, couldn't contain his disdain. "This is your shelter?" he asked, his translator barely masking the condescension in his chirping voice. "Some rocks and fabric?" Engineer David Martinez wiped the red dust from his forehead and nodded toward the structure he'd spent 3 days building. It looked primitive compared to the expedition's crystalline habitat domes, just a semicircular wall of stacked stones with a canvas tarp stretched overhead, partially buried into the canyon wall. "It'll do the job," David said simply. The Kralix's feathers ruffled in what passed for laughter among his species. "Our atmospheric shields can withstand Category 5 storms. Your shelter looks like it would collapse in a strong breeze." Dr. Chanvier, the reptilian Sath scientist, was more diplomatic. "Perhaps the human is working with limited resources. We should offer him space in our primary dome." "I'm good," David replied, checking his primitive weather monitor, a device the aliens found laughably outdated. "But thanks." The other team members exchanged glances. Humans were known for their stubbornness, but this bordered on suicidal. The planet Zirion 7 was being surveyed for potential colonization, but its weather patterns were notoriously unpredictable. "Suit yourself," Veldar said, his team retreating to their advanced habitat a kilometer away. "Try not to die out here. The paperwork would be tedious." David watched them go, then returned to reinforcing his shelter's entrance. He'd studied Earth's ancient desert peoples, the Bedouins, the Pueblo, the Berbers. They'd survived in harsh conditions for millennia with nothing but ingenuity and understanding of their environment. The aliens had better technology, sure, but technology could fail. 3 hours later, David's weather monitor screamed a warning. He'd been expecting it. The air pressure had been dropping all afternoon, the temperature fluctuating wildly. He sealed his shelter's entrance with practiced efficiency, wedging the final stones into place and securing the tarp with anchor lines buried deep in the sand. The sandstorm hit like a freight train. Zirion 7's storms weren't just wind and dust. The planet's unique atmospheric composition created electrical discharges that fried unshielded electronics. David had accounted for this, grounding his shelter naturally through the stone and earth. In their habitat, the expedition team watched in horror as their shields flickered and died. The electromagnetic pulses overwhelmed their systems. Warning klaxons blared as sand began seeping through hairline cracks in their crystalline walls. "Emergency protocols!" Veldar shrieked. "The habitat is compromised. Where do we go?" Chanvier asked, panic creeping into her normally calm voice. Through the howling storm, barely visible on their failing sensors, was a single structure still standing, the humans' primitive shelter. They ran. David heard the desperate pounding on his entrance stones over the storm's roar. He opened up, pulling in 6 terrified aliens one by one. His shelter, designed using principles 10,000 years old, held firm. The stone walls absorbed the wind's force, the buried foundation prevented undermining, and the tarp, angled precisely to deflect rather than resist, channeled the wind's energy harmlessly overhead. For 6 hours, they huddled in the darkness while the storm raged. When it finally passed, they emerged to find their expensive habitat half buried and inoperable. David's shelter stood unchanged. "How did you know?" Veldar asked quietly, his earlier arrogance gone. David smiled, patting the ancient stone wall. "My ancestors survived worse with less. Sometimes the old ways work because they've had thousands of years to prove themselves." The Kralix looked at the primitive shelter with new eyes. "Perhaps," he admitted, "there is more to learn from humans than their technology." "Now you're getting it," David said, already planning how to rebuild their habitat, properly this time.